Hi, I'm Keith, and this is a little overview of Python. How to fly simple, or flying made simple without the NyQuil hangover. I'm going to tell a little bit about me, a little bit about Python, some of Python's basics, some main things that you can use Python for, go into a little bit of the Coding for Penetration Testers book, some tips, tricks, and observations I've picked up along the way, and provide you some resources that I've come across. Okay, who am I? I'm a husband, a father, a geek, and according to my wife, I get distracted by shiny objects real easy. My career path switched to IT in '99, and professionally in IT since 2001. I'm currently learning, studying, and interviewing for InfoSec professional roles. I've been playing with Visual Basic Script since 2007 and just started learning Python back in 2011. And I'll go more into that. A little bit about Python. Guido van Rossum, who's currently at Google, started Python back in 1980s. Remember this? Mm-hmm. That's back when version 2.0. Remember this? Version 3.0. So you can see how solid it is. What is Python good for? Python comes with a large library that covers many areas, and you can see whether it be string processing for Unicode or regex, or internet protocols, HTTP, software engineering, operating system interfaces, whether you want to do network stuff, or work with files, or AI, which I haven't really got into that. So, what is Python good for? And thank you, Rogue Clown, for letting me use this pic. It's getting extensive use in the information security industry, whether you're doing exploit development, network, debugging, reverse engineering, fuzzing, web forensics, malware analysis. Python's easy to write short scripts for regular system admin work. And the big thing, it's easy to understand. You can take a piece of Python code, set it next to Java code. You'll look away from Java code. You'll look at Python because it just makes sense. Python's cross-platform. What script you make on Windows, you can use on Mac and Linux.
Why does Linux have to destroy the human race? Because it will.
And there's also many, many resources and a really big friendly community out there. Some of Python's tools that have been made with Python, I'm sure maybe some of you might have heard of this guy. Social Engineer Toolkit. Artillery is one of his latest ones. And Fast Track. All of that is all Python based. The time I started this talk, he's probably started working on a new release for Social Engineering Toolkit, and by the time I finish this, he'll probably be able to finish that release and have it ready for everyone. It's just that simple to bust out code that quick. There's also Scapy. Not made by Dave, but you can do all kinds of stuff, creating, sniffing, forging network packets. There's Pitbull. You want to run your IDS or IPS through the ringer. Scrapey, if you want to do any kind of screen scraping or web crawling. And W3AF. The inspiration for this idea for this talk, I went to a conference and I bought a book, and the book was neat. The book was so much better than the Chapter 1 Print Hello World. I've done enough coding in VB script that anything beyond Chapter 1, or anything like Chapter 1 Print Hello World is just boring to me. I want to see something that gets down to the heart of the matter. And this book definitely explains things really well. And it shows some good stuff you can do. And the other inspiration for the idea came from a MISEC post-Seesaw CTF talk, where it was Matt and Wolf, where Wolf was the white spy with C# and Matt was PowerShell. So one night I'm talking with Wolf on Twitter, and I said, ooh, I could do this in 2 lines of code. So that's when he had asked, you want to do a talk for MISEC? So my theme was bring a new spy to the game, Python. I'm going to tell you a little bit of Python 101 just to kind of get you a little familiar with it, maybe show some differences where you may be used to VBScript or whatever kind of scripting. Indentation with Python does matter. I found this script for the Fibonacci sequence. And if, I think it's the yes, that line, that return line, if that is how it is on the second one, it will not work. VBScript, you only indent just to make it look pretty and to make it easier to track. But with Python, indentation does matter. All scripts are considered modules. Sorry about that. You can import the whole module in and use all the functions of that module, or you can just import the function that you want to use. If you want to use the whole sys module, import sys. If you just want to use argv, from sys, import argv. There's built-in help. You can get the help by typing in the import of the module and then help in the name of the module or the name of the function. Or you can run pydocs by calling out the appropriate module you're looking help for or the appropriate function. It can be ran interactively. So via command prompt or terminal, just type in Python and away you go. Or there's Python shells. Idle, which is part of the Python install, DreamPy, and there's IPython. And IPython's a little different, but it will still get what you need. This is the basics of the scripts. For Windows, .py for the Python script, that's the main one that you're really concerned about. Anything with .pyc, it's just generated by running the script. For Linux, while the file extension is optional, since it is cross-platform, I tend to kind of lean toward keeping the same file extensions. I'll create something on my Linux box or take it into work and look at it and play around with it while I'm at lunch. For Windows, you have to make sure .py file extension is associated with python.exe. And it helps to have python.exe in the system path so that you can just run the script straight from the command prompt. And adding the /bin/user/bin Python at the top of the script for Windows scripts will help with that cross-platform also. But for Linux, you can either just call Python and then the script name, or make sure it's chmodded to where it's executable. Data types. Python has all kinds of data types, whether it be integer, long integers, octal, hex, binary, handle floats and complex numbers. The string processing. And the second line, no, the third line of the string, print a bracket 3:6, that will trim off the third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth character. There's lists. You You can keep adding to the list where it's mutable, and tuples, which I don't really use that much yet. Tuples are non-mutable. If you try to append to the tuple, you get the particular error. Tuple object has no attribute append. You have your conditional statements, your if, your else, and your else if. Looping, your while loop. For this one, for instance, while the count is less than 9, it's going to print the count is and then the number and keep adding to it. So once it hits 10, then it says, hey, goodbye. The second one is a script that I had worked up for the post-seesaw CTF. It takes the script argument. It was, I believe it was a bunch of character code, and it was all split up by the colon. So it would read that argument in, and then remove the colon, and then for each one, it converts it to an integer, and then converts it to the character code, then it prints it out. And there's loop control. So if you wanted to only loop through 7 times for this one, that's the way to do it. There's functions. Here's a simple little base 64 function. You define the function and the appropriate variable, and then you call the function with the base 64 code, and it will put out the decoded input. Let's see. Files, you can open files for reading or open files to write to. The open files for reading, one of the scripts that I had created was the base 64 code was in this text file, so it would open it, read it, and then decode it, and then print out the answer. The write to file would also do the same thing, where it would write out the answer to the file when it was done. Input output. It's 2 different kinds, where there's raw input, where you can be prompted to, like for this one for instance, enter your input. You're prompted with to enter in whatever, and then it will print out what you just type back. Raw input versus input is different, where input will go through Python code itself. Raw input will just spit out what you type back. Some Python's uses for general scripting, cryptography, password creation, use files, write to and read from, and this is by far not the only things that can be done. Is just some examples. Here's one that I created to encode base 64 code. Prompted to enter in the code you wish to have encoded, and it will print out the base 64 coded information, and then to encode it ROT13 the same way. Look, I got a little typo. Oh, I guess I was copy paste happy. But you kind of get the idea. Here's a module that I created for the post-seesaw CTF, where there's one function for hex code, one function for the Unicode, one for base 64, and one for binary decoding. And the binary decoding, Google was my friend on that particular function. I found that, I believe, off of Stack Overflow. Great site, great resource. And here's the module in action. You import the script, and then type the module, and then dot function, and then enter in your data. And that's how it decodes it. Same thing, just continue up to the ROT13 and the base 64. Here's one I found for password creation. As you can see, the code is easily understandable. Print, how many characters would you like the password to be? Must have 9 or more. And then it takes that length of the input, and then it groups up in random groups of 3, whether it be string ASCII letters, string punctuation, string digits, and then it constructs the password. Here's one to read from a file. And again, I go back to the one that I created for the Seesaw CTF, or post Seesaw CTF. And then one to write to the file. I found a bunch of resources off of dirk-loss.de's website. Here's a bunch of Python tools and stuff made that's geared more toward networking. Scapy, which I talked about earlier, and I believe I think it's PyCap or PCAPy that I believe John Oberheid or Doug Song created. I know one of these I'd found that it was someone from Michigan. So now let's talk a little about Scapy. As you can see, Scapy does some things. Does some really neat things with networking. So let's get to crafting some packets. Right here, here's just a basic rundown of stacking the layers and giving a quick test run of the packet. And you can see you can dump out to Wireshark the packet that you just created and see how it's going to appear, and then you can just dump it out to Hex to see what's going to go across the wire. You can read PCAPs. Went out looking for some random PCAP files, and I do believe it looks for the number of packets through that PCAP file, and will tell you that there's 78 TCP packets for the configure one that I'd found, 255 UDP. And for the ping tunnel attack, you can see there's 4,343. You can also create a graphical dump of the said PCAP. I don't know how it's useful, but I'm sure someone might think it's neat and pretty. You can send packets. Here's an example. You can even take a PCAP file that you created and essentially replay it using the send recap or send p rdp cap and then the file location. And here's an example of one that I had replayed. Here was one that I thought was kind of neat. You can just send a message just straight over the Ethernet, and it appears to be OX6C969 protocol. It seemed neat at the time. You can send and receive packets. I crafted up this one to where send a ICMP with nothing but X's at the end, and one with ABCDEFGHIJ to /.org. You can also show how the packet is going to appear. And that's how it appeared through Wireshark. You can see the payload toward the end. So part of sending and receiving packets, you can do like Nmap light. You set your destination, set the TCP ports. You can even set out the amount of times to retry and timeout. Want to do fuzzing. Here's an example of some fuzzing that I did against my printer upstairs, and I didn't realize it was my printer until all of a sudden I started hearing some funny sounds. And then I went, oh, good thing the wife isn't here. You can do a TCP trace route of multiple locations and dump it out to a nice little table. And then, more pretty pictures. You have to have the appropriate dependencies installed, and the Scapy documentation definitely gives all the needed information so that if you want to make pretty pictures, you can make pretty pictures. You can do sniffing with Scapy. Here's an example of some sniffing that I was doing. I didn't have a chance to craft the script, but with the framework of Python, you could easily take that and just dump it out to text file or whatever you want for later use. Here's an example of running a send scan. Set your destination, set your TCP ports, and set your send flag. You can even do the classic attacks of the malformed packets or the ping of death. You see the X times 60,000. And that particular frame right there, I made sure to count. There's all 60,000 X's. Now here's the neatest thing. Neatest thing that Scapy can do. And if you don't think that's impressive, here's why it's impressive. You can send packets from one computer to the other via ICMP. And here's the script. I found the script in the book that I bought. Because, hey, the book has all kinds of neat things. And here's the receive script. The book covers it really well. I highly suggest it, and unfortunately I don't get any kickbacks for it. So if you want to use debugging or reverse engineering, here's some of the tools that are Python based. Immunity Debugger, PyMay. Here's a little example of some exploitation scripting from the Coding for Pen Testers book. Originally, when I did this presentation for MySec, I had to mark it incomplete because I had a little surprise come along. But now, he said, go ahead, you can do it. And at the time, he wrote me a permission slip. But now, I can actually show a little bit of it. To start up building exploits with Python, you start with a Windows XP SP0 book. War FTPD v1.65 and Immunity Debugger. Start off with opening War FTPD through Immunity. You run it by pressing F9 and then select it to go online. And here's the script that I got from the Coding for Pen Testers book, to where it imports the sys and the socket modules. You set the username to A times 1024 and password of anything. And as you can see, it sets up the socket, and then it tries to connect to said hostname. And there's also even error control that if it can't connect, just says connection error and the script ends. And if it can connect, it sends that username of A times 1024, and here it is in action. And yes, there are 1024 A's. I made sure to count them all. And here's the Wireshark dump of it. Once that runs, War FTP crashes. I would go into it more, but there's quite a bit more slides, and this is definitely a good opportunity to say, if you're interested in any kind of scripting like this book I highly suggest, Coding for Pen Testers. Malware analysis. Malware Analyst Cookbook. There's all kinds of Python-based tools that you can find off of the DVD that's included. You see there's plenty of tools. If you want to do, I know there was one for automating uploading to VirusTotal. Here's another malware analysis book. The guys that wrote this book came up with this Python-based script that sets up a fake network. You run this, and it will start listening for traffic on port 80, SSL traffic, you name it, and anything that comes across, it will report it. So you get your malware analysis lab set up, and on your victim machine, set it on the same network, and you'll see if any kind of malware is calling out. There's some more malware analysis tools. Cuckoo Sandbox, I recently heard about. They had a pretty good article on their analysis of the new malware Flame. If you want to do any kind of fuzzing, you'll see there's plenty of tools that are Python-based for fuzzing. The one I'm going to show a little on, SickFuzz. Here's a demo of me fuzzing my printer again. And it did make some funny noises, but it survived. Web. There's all kinds of Python stuff that you can use for web-related stuff. Scrapey is the one that really stands out, and I'll show a little quick demo of. Here's a script that I'd found off of the site I have listed. And we'll go out and do a scrape of stackoverflow.com. And the function and the flexibility is there to where you can take that script and easily convert it over to other sites if you want to do a quick dump of that site. Forensics. If anyone was in the forensics workshop yesterday, you probably got to play with volatility, or if you watched Brett Cunningham's presentation yesterday, you definitely saw some work on volatility. Here's a little demo on volatility. I came across a Zeus mem dump off of Volatility's website. They have some good memory samples that you can use and get familiar with the tool. Here's the particular connections that we're going for that memory dump, and here's the process list. There's all kinds of other miscellaneous stuff too as well. I won't go into that because you can see the list is rather extensive. Now for the Coding for Pen Testers book. There's all kinds of scripts and opportunities to learn Python with that. I mean, you can learn particular use of script arguments, how to connect to a web server and run a GET request, parsing the robot text file, all the way up to network socket creation. And the one valuable lesson that I definitely made sure to note, spaces will bite you when you least expect it. Because I copied the script from the book, and I think I spent about 10 minutes trying to figure out why the script wasn't going, and it was just one simple space in the wrong spot. So ever since then, no spaces have snuck up on me like that. And then the receive ICMP and send ICMP. Got that from the Coding for Pen Testers book. Here's some little gems that I found along the way. Someone went on and created a Python library for using Nmap. This Python API for VirtualBox. Py2exe. If you want to take a Python script, convert it into a Windows executable, to where once all it's done, you can run that on your Windows machine. And it works pretty good. I heard that Dave Kennedy uses a different one, and I unfortunately didn't get that information. If you want to play with Python inside Chrome, there's at least 3 good Chrome extensions. Tweepy. By far, this is the best working Python library to interface with Twitter. And I even created a little Python script to do stuff through Twitter. You can see from the screenshot, I named it Taz Handy Python script. You can do some direct messaging, check friends' timelines, create favorites, and other stuff. And here's the link where I got all the information from. IDEs, integrated development environments. And the ones that I have listed here, I'm only going to comment because these are the ones that I played with. There are plenty of others that you can find from the link, so I'm only going to talk about the ones that I know. PyScripter's got to be the best one by far for Windows. It's got the best code auto-completion. Aptana Studio was pretty good. Idle, that's your basic default. Ninja, I really didn't like all that much. And Wing IDE, there's about 4 or 5 different versions of it where you can start off with your basic free, bare bones, barely does anything, all the way up to a high-end developer's version. And of the Linux IDEs, Idle, Genie, Python Toolkit, and SPE's got to be the best one that I've played with Linux-wise. The editors, which will color code your scripts so that they're easier to read. Notepad++ is the only one that I've really played with on Windows. And Linux, gedit and SCITE are both really good ones. Your shells, DreamPy. DreamPy is a really good one. I really like that one. It's got the built-in auto-completion of attributes and file names, history box. Idle, that's part of Python. You got IPython and you got PyShell. You also got Guake. While Guake is the normal roll-down terminal, you can set in the settings for Guake to use Python instead of your regular user terminal. And then there's Python Anywhere. Python Anywhere is, well, exactly like it says. You can run Python anywhere. Log on to the website, set up an account, you get 5 shells where you can access anywhere and you can share out those shells with other people. I think I already covered this, so we can skip past this. I mean, it's just the same stuff, Linux versus Windows. Portable Python. I found this little gem where you can plug in your USB drive. You have Python complete. No install, run it off your thumb drive. And you can see that it comes with quite a plethora of libraries. And for 3.2 for portable Python, there's only a few because Python, most of the Python libraries out there haven't fully converted over to 3 yet. Here's a bunch of the books that I use for my resources. The Learning Python was really good. The Foundations of Python Network Programming was really, really good. Here's a bunch of links that I'd found, and I can have this slide deck up on my blog. Anyone wants to grab it, you're more than welcome to. There's all kinds of online exercises, and the ones that I have bolded out were the ones that really stood out to me. There's free online videos, there's online books, online interactive tutorial, an interpreter. There's really good forums. And the module package repository, if you want to go out and if you're looking for a particular Python module, someone may have already created it, because off of the Python side, there's at least 17,000. And that was the last time I did this talk, but there's probably quite a few more because it's constantly being added to. Another good one for scripts is active state code recipes. And then last but not least, the Python tools for penetration testers is where I found most of the links for the networking and all the other categories. If you want to have any kind of Python training, SecurityTube, they came out with their SecurityTube Python scripting expert program. And you can see of the 9 modules, it covers a nice little variety. And Python training for security professionals, I believe that one is run by Joel McRae. And here's all the scripts that I created for the Seesaw CTF Redux is what I called it. Here's some stuff from the Coding for Pen Testers scripts that I'd used. There's the Wireshark dumps that you're more than welcome to grab these out of this. And now to close it out, anti-gravity. When you open module docs or click on anti-gravity module, or from idle, run import anti-gravity. Saw that web browser that popped up earlier opening the XKCD cartoon. The Zen of Python. To start the path of finding Zen of Python, remember these 2 words, import this. From idle or Python shell, run import this, and the Zen of Python will be revealed. See? That was an interesting little Easter egg that I'd found out about. Now, final thoughts. I really like Python. It's really easily understandable, and if you want to get something done quick, Python seems to be the way to go, and it's really flexible, and I don't think of anything else I could think of. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, there's my information. You can find me on Twitter. There's my email or my blog, or you can find me on the MISEC channel occasionally. That 1 hour a night I get to play when the wife and son are in bed at 9 o'clock, and I'm getting ready to get up at 5. So that's it.
Programming change. The last talk will be in the other room. I believe it's war driving with robots or something of that nature. Or dining. All right, yeah, what he said. So everyone head over there. I think there'll be final thoughts at the end of that. So this is it for this room. Say goodbye to the river.
Bye, river.
Is there a radio station?
I think I went through that quicker than I expected.
I'm originally from North, but I live in
Don't know, you just look like
Bravo,
Scotty.
Speed up a little bit, but you're up? Great. Yep. Okay. Cool.
I've had a lot of shit to play with now.
That shows you something.